Y emitimos en directo en YouTube.
Muy bien, pues gracias.
So hello, Mary. We are finally here, all of us. Well, not many people, but we have two people and me in the room, and then we have some other people online. Okay, so if you want to start, Mary, with this roundtable. It's being broadcast live on YouTube, so we probably have more people outside of the conference joining by watching the video live on YouTube. Okay, so thank you for being here, and now you have the floor. I can activate the audio, and you can start the round table whenever you want.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone, depending on where you are in the world joining us today. I wish I were there at the conference instead of here virtually, but that's the situation. And I'd like to thank AELFE, Elizabeth, and her whole team for putting this together and dealing with the hybrid format, which has been quite stressful, I think, so far today, but all is good. So we have three of us here today. One person will be presenting virtually, but we will go ahead and, why is this not? Okay, there we go. So I wanted to start with an overview of what we're going to discuss today. First, briefly, the motivation for the roundtable, looking at LSP across the globe, activities from different regions that will be represented in the roundtable today. I will present some short survey results of information we gathered from LSP groups globally. And then we will close with discussion and comments from the audience. Hopefully people will type in things in the chat and talk about future directions. So my personal motivation for this was from my doctoral studies back in 2009, when I started a community of practice trying to connect just US LSP educators. And by doing that, I discovered all the activities that were going on with LSP around the world, which actually back then was nothing compared to what's you can see now. And I think a lot of that is just the availability of the internet, where that wasn't so accessible before. If we fast forward to 2019, at the LSP and Higher Education Conference I participated in, it was there that I met even more LSP educators and groups from all over the place, and also learned of all the new European Union initiatives that have been funded and started, which Violetta is going to share a little bit about with us later. So those were all very exciting things. And those of us at that event began to talk and say, you know, how can we come together more? How can we have some shared events, share resources, et cetera? And then that kind of was the impetus to start an inventory of LSP groups that we knew of around the world. And we invited people to fill in extra information. And then from there, we did a short survey that we sent out to people, which I will give the results of that later in the session. And then we chose AELFE conference to share those results and try to recruit some more people to see who would be interested in connecting LSP educators around the globe. So some of the initial questions that we wanted to think about: why is it important to connect the scholars around the globe, and what kind of things do people want to focus on? What is currently being done by everyone, because there's so much happening, it's hard to keep track. And what might be some ways efficient ways for people to communicate and collaborate in an organized manner. And one final comment here at the bottom is considering the differences between ESP and LSP, because there's varying opinions on how these fields connect or don't connect. So hopefully some of these things will come up in the discussion at the end. And it turns out that Nadezhda from Serbia is not able to be here today, but she has sent a YouTube clip, and I apologize that you're going to have to watch a YouTube clip within another YouTube, but technology does allow, at least for her presence. And she is going to talk about ESP specifically in Serbia and the activities there. And her participation in the roundtable is kind of indicative of what's happening in a lot of countries and regions where there's just an individual small group that's not an official organization having conferences and publications, but not a specific group. So we thought this was representative, and I'm going to go to the next slide. And hopefully this is all gonna work. And then after Nadezhda, we'll have Violeta and Laura live. So let's see this works okay.
In terms of a wider recognition,
Maybe because your mic is off, right?
You can't hear?
Yeah, now I can hear you, but the mic was.
Oh, because I muted. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Let me get it going.
if I may remind you or show you, this is where we are. We are a small country. Serbia is a country of some 6 million people. And Niš, where I come from, is the 3rd largest city in the country. I am saying this because when we started the conference in 2013, we had 100 participants coming from 4 continents, 40 countries in 2013. The tradition remained. So far, we have been visited by participants coming from 56 countries altogether. If all these colleagues, practitioners, scholars have been willing to join us and to make a physical effort to come to us, and we are not very famous, then it proves our premise, our starting premise, that for ESP practitioners, lecturers, researchers, there are not enough venues where to present their work, where to exchange know-how, and where to promote. At our first conference, we had the exquisite support by Professor Ann Jones as a keynote speaker. Then we were able to bring Professor Diane Belcher, Professor Mary Risner, who is with us today. So this is also telling of the recognition of relevance of this work by outstanding individuals, professors, scholars in the field. let me also say that we have expanded to LSP, not just ESP, as we believe and recognize that we can share much of our professional knowledge. Another major aspect of our work and our pride is our journal. It was initiated and established in the same year as when we began our conference tradition. And the proof of the same idea that people dealing with languages for profession are underrepresented in our international academic area setting is the fact, we find the proof in the fact that already in 2015, 2 years exactly after the establishment of the journal and only 9 issues published, we were recognized by the Web of Science and included in this database. And we are now also indexed in the Scopus database. Again, we welcome LSP contributions, and we have so far had a special issue devoted to it and are open to more of such papers. On the basis of the experience that I have had so far and that I have tried to present you, I am now putting forward my arguments. And the first one is the need of what as I term it here, building a tradition in LSP. And by that, I mean that what we can do in our own environment, or wider, I hope, should not be a one-time event, occurrence, but that because LSP has a significance for the impact on society that is measured in economic and cultural outputs, and that is because it is international and in nature and scope, it deserves, it definitely should be promoted in the sense that we need to expand and strengthen and deepen the awareness of its relevance, first of all, in our own academic settings, and then wider. I am saying that it is us who needs to do it. Speaking of this acknowledgement of the relevance of what we do in our own immediate academic settings, comes from my experience, my professional exchange with colleagues in the country, in the region, and Europe, who very often tell of highly similar situation they experienced professionally, that the positions of ESP, LSP lecturers is somewhat, or even more, neglected. And it seems that very often those courses they provide and they themselves are kind of put aside. Therefore, if organizing, if facilitating pathways of various sorts, we have our own two examples of the conference and of the journal, does help change this situation. I believe that an ideal prospect, a resolution of this situation would be to gather together and have some platform which would enable us to meet, which would serve as a pool of our own data, of our own work, as a pool of both teaching and reading material, and a place where to inform of all kinds of events and projects.
Okay, so this was an example of activities in one particular
In terms of
right? Oh my gosh.
Wide.
So that was an example of what is kind of activities happening in various countries around the world that are doing individual types of projects. So now we have Violeta from Slovenia, who is going to talk to us a little bit about all the some innovative projects that are happening in Europe and from her Slovenian association work there. So you'll tell me when to advance.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mary. So one of the objectives of this roundtable actually is to explore different ways how to connect LSP practitioners, and by this I mean researchers, teachers, scholars, anybody around the world. And the first answer to this obviously is conferences such as this one. But today I would not like to talk about conferences, but what I would like to mention is the importance of international projects and also the initiatives of different LSP teachers associations. Obviously, we also may have federations of associations, but I will focus on the 2 points that are highlighted in this particular slide. Next slide, please.
Why? Why is it? There we go.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mary. So first of all, projects. Now we can see that in the European Union, there are numerous LSP-focused projects that were funded in the last decades. But today, what I would like to briefly present here is 3 projects that are all aiming at the professional development of LSP teachers. And all these 3 projects were actually granted funding by the European Union in the last 3 years. And in my opinion, actually, this indicates some kind of political support at the level of the European Union for the professional development of LSP teachers, which had not been seen before. And as you can see, the 3 projects that I was mentioning, the first one is Trails, the second one is the LSP TEOC Pro, and the final one is Catapult. Next slide, please. And today here, I will just briefly present the first two. So Trails and LSP-TOC Pro, because I have been involved in these two projects. My aim is not to present all the different details of these two projects, because my colleagues Anna and Lola from the University of Cadiz will be talking about these tomorrow in one of the two sessions. But what I would like to present are the outlines of the intellectual outputs that we worked on and that we are working on, so that we can see actually the importance of these projects for the development of international communities of LSP teachers and pre-service, in-service learners, but also external stakeholders. Now, the first of the two projects that I will highlight is Trails, which stands for LSP Teacher Training Summer School, a project that started 2018, was supposed to end in 2020 with a summer school, but then ended in 2021 with a winter school. And the primary focus of this project actually was to provide LSP teaching training and skills development to promote high quality and innovative teaching. Next slide, please. And as you can see, this is the project partnership. So this was the kickoff meeting in Bordeaux, but otherwise the project members, the University of Ljubljana, which I come from, then University of Zagreb, Adam Makiewicz from Poland, the University of Cadiz in Spain, the University of Bergamo in Italy, Bordeaux as the project coordinator, the University of Applied Sciences from Germany, and then the only non-higher education institution, which was Arcola Research. So we can see a pan-European partnership of different organizations. Next slide, please. So in the Trails project, what we did was divided it into 5 stages. First, we reviewed existing LSP teacher training programs in the European higher education area. And then based on a survey and interviews, we identified LSP teachers' needs. And in the third step, what we did was we identified the gaps between the first two steps, which is the current provision of LSP teacher training programs and the needs that LSP teachers actually have for their professional development. Based on these gaps, we defined the training objectives and outcomes of the summer school, which then became a winter school, and we designed an LSP teacher training curriculum, implemented the winter school. Next slide, please. Yes. And what this project ended up with is, as I mentioned, in February 2021, a winter online school, which importantly for this roundtable created a new community of LSP practitioners. This is the different project partners from which the trainers came, then pre-service winter school participants, in-service winter school participants, any external stakeholders, and possibly other actually interested of the professional community whom we do not know about, but might have read about the project on the website, Facebook page, through Twitter, ResearchGate, and all the other media that we used for the dissemination of the results. Next slide, please. And then building on this project, we submitted another project proposal that was again accepted, LSP-TOC Pro, standing for the LSP Teacher Education online course for professional development. And the main objectives, the main objective of this project is to develop an LSP teacher professional development course that will be free, that will be online, and that will be, importantly for the LSP community, multilingual. So not only focusing on English. Next slide, please. Here we can see again the partnership, basically the same as for the Trails project, with 2 additions. On the left, we have Flensburg from Germany, another university, and the green box, Çukurova University from Turkey. So again, expanding our LSP community. Next slide, please. In this particular project, it has been divided into 8 intellectual outcomes. We have already completed intellectual output number 1, which means that we analyzed and synthesized existing LSP teacher education and development programs that would be available online. And currently we are here, step number 2, which is intellectual outcome number 2, the definition of an online teaching methodology. And then in September, we will continue with the development of course content for LSP teacher education and development. And as I mentioned earlier, the final result should be, again, toward building the LSP community of anybody using this particular platform that will be free, online, and multilingual. Next slide, please. And at the end of my section, what I would just briefly like to mention is another way how we can bring LSP practitioners together. And this is an initiative of the Slovene Association of LSP Teachers. Like Nadezhda was saying earlier, Slovenia actually is even smaller than Serbia. We have a population of 2 million, but we have a very active association of LSP teachers. And one of the initiatives that we would like to launch, next slide please, is a way how to bring LSP practitioners, scholars, researchers, and so on around the world together. And this is a work in progress. It hasn't really been started yet. So it is right now it is at the level of idea. But what we would like to create is the large blue box, an online password protected searchable database of LSP practitioners around the world, so that anybody who is interested in collaboration could easily find their soulmates, as we like to call them. And in this database, we would be able to apply different filters. Now, because of the situation, everybody is used to online shopping, and you can apply different filters, and you can easily reach your product. In our case, you can easily reach your soulmate. And the filters that we would like to apply would be searching by discipline. I come from logistics, maritime English, and so on. Language, so English, French, Spanish, German, Italian, and Slovenian, if you like. Then possibly by country or region, if you would like to have any collaboration that is geographically limited. What is also important to me is the proficiency level of my learners, if I would like to collaborate in any kind of telecollaboration. Project interests, if I'm interested in a particular project idea, that would facilitate, finding the partners that would be interested in a similar idea. Maybe supervision interests. I'm a PhD student and there is no suitable PhD supervisor in my country. So why do not I try to find somebody on another continent? Research interests and so on. I would really like to ask the audience to contribute maybe further ideas to this particular initiative that we would like to launch, and so create something that would really be useful for everybody, for any LSP practitioner around the globe. So this is all from me for now. Later on, I'm open to any discussion and questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Violetta. And we will have a link at the end for people to sign up and send their name and email for future input and collaboration. Thank you. Yes, so the things that are happening with these European projects right now are quite amazing. So now we, trying to bring in representation beyond the global north here. So we have Laura here with us from Argentina, who is going to share some perspectives about LSP from Latin America and talk specifically about Spanish for specific purposes.
Thank you very much. And hello to everyone from Buenos Aires. It's nice that although we cannot be all together in one place, it's very nice to have each other next to through this virtual meeting. So fantastic. I'm here to let you know some of the experiences that we have been having recently in Latin America in regards to Spanish for specific purposes. And I'm glad to see that ESP and LSP are opening to more languages to work all together, because we are close hand by hand doing more or less same things with mother languages. Next slide, please. In South America, of course, the first contact with specific purposes was through English. English was always our father, like giving us information how to work with different things, and especially because of the motivation of the students to learn English for specific purposes related to business and all the things that were related to the international world, where English was the language of communication. But since 2001, in South America, we started to have a stronger development of Spanish as a foreign language due to many reasons, including that Brazil had a new regulation and decided to have Spanish classes in their schools, and people were more interested in learning Spanish. The Mercosur agreements were happening and things were going, but not as we expected or as Europe is doing. You can see that we are some steps behind them, but learning. And these meetings help us so much to start progressing in these ideas and these future training for teachers. Next slide, please, Mary. Two recent events, thanks to the pandemic, helped a lot to connect, because in a region, and I'm talking from Mexico to Ushuaia in Argentina, we all were doing completely amazing programs, fantastic ideas, courses at universities, exchange programs, immersion programs related to Spanish for specific purposes, but nobody knew of the other. In my country, for instance, I am in Buenos Aires, but a lot of things were going on inside Argentina, and we didn't know, hey, are you studying the same thing that I'm studying? Are you investigating the same thing? Are you researching? Are you completing a database? So these meetings reunited isolated projects. Many researchers that were unknown start to work each other. In December 2020, el Encuentro Latinoamericano de Español fue organizado por la Universidad de Chile y Brasil. So two different universities from two countries organized together a meeting. That was fantastic. And unfortunately, we couldn't do it in person, but it was online at my university, the JERES meeting, that started to catch attraction from different investigators, professors, and we could start new relations on cross-country programs and new training programs. Many of these things were, they came in an appropriate moment to inspire, to collaborate, to exchange. We were doing little things in different places, and this was a good way to give us more awareness of these programs, of these specific things, and trying to develop a better teaching training program in Latin America about specific purposes. One more, Mary. As you can see, this is a picture of my country, and talking about countries as Violeta and Nadesha were doing, I want to let you know something about Argentina. We're down the globe, very far away from you guys, but it's a very wide and large country where it has a lot of excuses for people to learn Spanish. Where these programs were starting, where the production areas were starting, like winery, exportations, the fuel south of our country, the sustainable energy. So companies were bringing people from abroad and they need to learn Spanish, but they didn't need to learn Spanish only for living here, but also for their business, for what they were doing. So a lot of business motivation were coming. And the other one that is very big, and the one that I'm specialized is in Spanish for health. Our health system it's very interesting to learn. We are open for many activities here, and there's a lot of people coming from different countries to learn about Spanish and health, and we could combine a lot of attractive programs, combining visits with hospitals, volunteer work, visits to universities, like introducing colleagues from, like you are colleagues from this area, you meet colleagues from Argentina, from your area. So it was a very good way to exchange. So what can I tell you is that Argentina started to develop courses created due to immediate needs. And this research and this training were not articulated, and they were self-conducted by us, as we could manage them and learn from other experiences. Next, Mary. So what are the challenges that we have in Spanish as a foreign language here and with specific purposes? We have these challenges that there was a lack of communication between researchers, many different styles of teaching and many different approaches to what we were doing with Spanish as a foreign language. Very few theoretical background or absence of real update databases of programs and information. And we thought as speakers that our variations from Spanish from different places was a problem, but it wasn't. In these meetings that we were exchanging about Spanish variations and what do you speak in the Cono Sur, what do you speak in the Caribbean area. So we discovered that these variations is an issue only for us, not for the learners. So it was fantastic to see the results. Next one, and the last one. I was very envy watching at Violeta's program and the European information and the progress of what you're doing. But this envy will turn into learning, and I will be one of your first students, because we need more opportunities and we have to work more here in Spanish as a foreign language for specific purposes, with more meetings, giving more structure to these communities and having more groups and associations, the ones as you are doing. All these programs and all these experiences started with personal connections and personal contacts and personal relationships. So we believe that it's very important to keep this communication going on around the globe. So if some other researchers of Spanish are listening, please reach us out too. And we would like to have more special training courses for future language teachers about SPS. At our master's programs or at universities, we don't have a lot of courses related to Spanish for specific purposes, and we believe that in the future, this is going to be a very big demand, and it's going to be a larger opportunity for many of us who are interested in exploring these areas. So thank you so much for inviting me and to present a little bit of what's going on here with Spanish as a foreign language.
Well, thank you so much for joining. And I'm at the Center for Latin American Studies here in Florida, and I have been trying to identify Spanish for specific purposes in Latin America forever. So I was ecstatic when I saw Jerez was going to be in Argentina, and when I saw the Chile-Brazil group. So big things will be happening and great models to follow from the EU. Okay, so we are way behind on time because we started late. So I'm going to try to whiz through the slides that I have on the 9-question survey that we did. So in the initial spreadsheet of the organizations that I kind of knew of from the work on my Noble initiative, where resources and events are compiled, a few others added more. So we had a total of 19 to start from. Where we had contact information, we sent the short survey out. I thought 12 responses out of 19 wasn't bad, and especially considering we were missing some contact information. And then I will go over quickly just some information about organizations we know of, even though we didn't get a response. Look again at the current initiatives discussed and how these can be used as models for others, or to join in and collaborate. And then we will have hopefully have some discussion and thoughts from attendees. So real quick, just here is a map that kind of shows where we have LSP respondents and people doing different activities. Here I list the area, country, region where the respondents are, just to have it a little clearer than on the map. So it's quite a bit of diversity, although not all are official associations or organizations. Some are similar to Nadeja with events and possibly publications for their LSP work. And I'm just going to go through the slides on the results. So over half are a nonprofit association organization. More than half are also housed at an academic institution. Only 2 were ESP only, and that's the Serbian group and Geras in France. And this really surprised me because it's assumed that all around everybody's only focusing on ESP, but according to these responses, that's not the case. Everybody holds some kind of conference, even if it's not annual. Over half do have an annual one. Others have it spaced out every 2 or 3 years. Attendees come from very far away. And I can say, even from my experience of a lot of the European LSP conferences, and even in the US, people come from everywhere to these events. So as Nadezhda was saying, people are desperate for training and professional development and interaction with the field of LSP. So as I've been compiling events over the years, there's a lot of competing timeframes. But when I actually had this question on the survey, it seems that the events, I did it on this little timeline, they are actually kind of spread out. So maybe it's not such bad news in the way things are scheduled, and it'll make it easier for people to attend and not have conflicts. Because I will say, with Violetta's conference in Slovenia, I've always seen they do it at a lovely hot springs location, and I've been dying to go for years, and I always have a conflict with something else. But so I'm hoping still. Most people do change the venue. Top content of what people are covering at these conferences: linguistics, research, practitioner information. Some of the other that people added: pedagogy, applied teaching, genre-based research, which someone explained in detail here at the bottom. Business communication, teaching LSP, etc. Most offer other additional trainings within their region, in addition to major conferences that they hold. The majority said they will continue virtual or hybrid events. And my passion is training at the pre-university level. And most people are not doing that, other than the US group includes it, and the Slovenian Association. Quite a few with organizations with a journal, and then some places just have a journal and don't have an organization, which is interesting. So there's a lot of publication venues that I think there could be opportunity for sharing and getting people to submit to journals outside of their region and sharing that knowledge and getting these journals out to everyone. Almost everybody has some kind of newsletter. Well, no, actually it was low here, that they all use social media. A lot of people have Facebook, Twitter, and some on LinkedIn. Most have half and half for proceedings. How they advertise their events, pretty typical: email, website, social media. And we plan on doing kind of a write-up on some of these, some of this information in detail, but I'm just going through this quickly now. What I thought was the good news, even though it's only 12 groups, everybody does agree that they would like to see some kind of, I don't know, ad hoc representative liaison group with one person from each organization around the world to somehow coordinate and keep people more informed. Here are some of the tasks, activities that people would envision. Avoiding conflict of dates and events, sharing resources, kind of pretty much typical things and what everybody has mentioned so far from the panelists. Potentially a big conference event, which would be similar to what the virtual exchange people are now doing. They're collaborating from around the world. All the virtual exchange groups are coming together to do a big event. I think that would be great for LSP. Sharing information, networks, journal, how to index journals, meeting points, and then another suggestion of even just some small events through Zoom that doesn't have to be so stressful as a giant conference, which I think is also a great idea. Interestingly, no one mentioned training, even though one comment from the Asia Pacific group, they did bring up the need for training new and up and coming LSP graduate students, early educators. So quickly, we know of other groups, but that we weren't able to get a response. And I just had informal correspondence with people from India and Sub-Saharan Africa that I met through the LSP Higher Ed conference in London and through Nadezhda Serbia conference. But they commented that the focus in those regions is really English for academic purposes, that they don't have the resources for working towards LSP. Although years ago, I used to get a bunch of messages from an Indian professor that was doing business, Spanish and Latin American issues, but I haven't heard from him in a long time, so I don't know what happened. I do know the Instituto Cervantes is there doing a lot of Spanish. Other groups or conferences that we have in the spreadsheet come from Poland, Italy, Hungary, and I think I spelled wrong. I spelled Czech Republic wrong. Singapore, Netherlands, which is the Spanish for specific purposes, Franceses also, and Germany for language in the media, which is an annual event, I believe in Berlin. So there's a lot going on in different places. And I wanted to give, not only because it's one of my languages and I'm at the Center for Latin American Studies, but Spanish for specific purposes is really, I think, booming even more than ever. The GERES and CFA groups have been around quite a while. The Jefe group out of Vienna is new, but doing a lot. I believe they're the ones that did the platform that I have listed here at the bottom for business Spanish. And the most recent online event through Chile and Brazil is really going to get a lot of traction. That will become an annual event, and I'm sure they're going to be doing other activities as well. And then for those that haven't heard about there is a upcoming Routledge volume on Spanish for specific purposes with co-editors and authors from all around the world. So I think that's going to really raise the visibility of Spanish for specific purposes as well. So just quick summary of the main details. Similar types of activities for those that aren't an official organization, they're conferences, journals, proceedings. The majority of groups represent ESP and LSP, which kind of surprised me actually. Everyone's focusing on higher ed. The most activity right now is Europe, and they're getting great funding support, which would be great to see in other regions if we can work on similar projects for funding. Pretty much everyone is using social media presence. And I'll say I've met a lot of LSPers, however we want to call them, LSP colleagues beyond conferences just through Twitter, LinkedIn, going to the conference webpage and contacting people. So it really works to bring us together. We can say very strong Spanish for specific purposes, presence and growth. A challenge is it's not always obvious how to contact the people from these different countries as I think organizers change. So that's maybe not a main address to check. And then the most positive thing is that everyone seems to be interested in finding some way to a mutually beneficial way for us all to connect where it makes sense and is practical and efficient. And then I was just going to quickly go over the old Noble project, and the LSP higher ed group has been compiling and sharing resources on static sites, which was great early on, but now there's just so much technology and possibility for platforms that, like the European Union is proposing. That's really the way of the future, is finding ways to have platforms where people can actually interact, these free trainings, which Violetta didn't go into much detail on the catapult, but I have reviewed that and attended some of these things. So these are some great platforms too, and these will be useful, I think, as Violetta and her group creates theirs, to see where they can improve upon these recent developments here as well. But I encourage you all to Google the Catapult project as well and see what they're doing. But it is all in English, so it's great that the new project is going to expand to other languages. That will be very important. Yeah, so then I just put in another plug for Violetta's projects, because I think, you know, it's going to be a way for people to collaborate, contact her to collaborate, and just as models, because I could see maybe even the Spanish groups specifically doing some kind of Spanish focused activity at some point. And I wanted to share one last group that's recent here in the US that is a more modern platform where it's connecting educators, students, and employers, and the focus is translation or interpretation localization. So this is another platform that's worthy to explore. So how are we? Okay, so we're okay on time to still have some discussion.
Yeah, we still have 15 minutes.
Okay, thank you. So these were just some questions I threw out, and Violetta and Laura can have others, but just, you know, what are the intersections between LSP, ESP, that where we might learn from each other, what are the best platforms, how can we use the EU models for the rest of the world, what's the starting point for some kind of global advisory committee, conference opportunities, virtual events, and then I had to put my plug in about pre-university high school educators getting some LSP training as well, so that students, when they go to university, they already have some LSP language training. And then I am just putting the link, which we can also put in the chat. If you want to be involved, send feedback, comments, we will be in touch. And oh gosh, I thank you. Now I have someone at the door. I hope they don't keep ringing the doorbell. Anyway, so hopefully we'll have some comments, questions. Violetta, Laura can add some things, and I'll shut up. I think people have to put in the chat. We're the only ones that can talk as in webinar format.
Thank you for the wonderful roundtable. I think you have shared very important and very nice information about LSP worldwide. So I think the attendees here, we have a quite good idea of all that is around, and as you said, there is still even more, and it's just a matter of finding the resources. But I think these projects are very interesting, and I've known some of them, Trails and Catapult, and I think they have great resources for LSP practitioners. Another issue I think is important is the connection between different associations, like we have in Europe, AELFE, and then in Slovenia and Serbia, etc. Because you have in France with ESP, and I think those networks are very important in my view to be able to collaborate and to facilitate this type of information to all the association members. I think that's a key point. So, for example, this link you have here, Mary, if you could send it to me, and I could distribute it in AELFE and other people, so have people answer this form, if you may.
Yes, of course. It's a very short form just to stay in touch with the name and the email of the person interested in contacting us and where they're reaching us from, so we can have more and stronger connections in the future.
They somebody put it in the chat. I don't know if that could be copied into the Zoom chat, because I'm not, or not the Zoom chat, the YouTube chat. But yeah, I can say, I don't know who's talking, but I'll send it to Elizabeth.
I'm Alejandro Curado, I'm the president of AELFE.
Ah, okay, great. Mucho gusto.
Sorry, I think I didn't introduce myself, sorry. With all the things that's going on with the technology today, we've been kind of in a rush. Sorry about that.
I can't imagine what you guys are going through. I hope there's going to be a lot of vino and cava to celebrate Elizabeth's birthday and relax after this stressful day with all the technology issues. That has been crazy. I can't imagine.
Yeah, it's been kind of hectic, but things are going well. I mean, it's going great. So yeah, we'll celebrate this evening after the first day of the conference.
Yeah.
And I will send you well, let me share with you my email. I think I can write it here
in the chat. Okay.
Oops.
Also.
Personal email, and so we are in contact.
All right, perfect. All right, well, oh, perfect, got it. All right, well, thank you for those that attended, and thank you, Alejandro. It's great to meet you. And thanks to our panelists, but I guess we will close, and best of luck.
Anybody else has any other comments here in the room? Guzman?
Yeah, perhaps. Good morning, good afternoon to you, and thank you for this for your talks. Really, I'm very glad that I finally managed to come to this roundtable. Really, it wasn't in my initial plan, but eventually I popped in and I said, well, let's see. And really, I'm really glad that I stayed. I've tried to connect to access the Zoom meeting, but I just can't. I don't know why. Right? So whatever happened. But as you were talking, I was trying to. Well, I have to introduce myself. I teach business English. I've been teaching business English for the past 10 years, more or less, at a small university, around 10,000 students enrolled in it, okay, in inland Catalonia, Spain. And I'm teaching two obligatory subjects of business English at the business administration degree. So we are in a strong position there. Okay, so because the subjects are obligatory first year, right? So the way I've been somehow I coordinate both subjects, and for each subject there are 2 or 3 groups, so quite a few of students enrolled there. But my big concern when I started teaching that was that I didn't know really how to teach, what to teach, right? What to teach in business English. So I eventually did some needs analysis. So that really helped in order to know what was really expected from the institution, from the students, really, and also from prospective employers in a way. So that's been the results of this project somehow has been useful for us for the past I'd say 7, 8 years. And now we are at the moment of implementing another research project whereby we would like to collect what's going on in the other subjects in the actual degree, so that in terms of those English medium subjects taught through English, so that we could somehow get to know what the disciplinary communicative needs are, and perhaps we can help our students from the very beginning, right? So this is the way I work in order to design the actual teaching or the instructional design of all subjects, But so trying to reconcile what you were saying in terms of meeting and coming together, the LSP practitioners and all that, okay, together with our daily routines, requires at least for me somehow of an effort at the moment, because I know it's really helpful for me to come to conferences and to learn what's going on, what others do in terms of research, in terms of getting to know the needs of the students. But then once you are in your local, unique setting, how do you implement these? So, so I go for it, for this global association perhaps, and networking, of course, that would really help. But once you are in your own room, desk, designing your own material for the conference, for your teaching, so what do you do then? So I don't know how to bridge these two ends.
Yeah, I think we're all so busy with what we're doing on our day-to-day. And I think by finding platforms that will facilitate people accessing resources, participating in LSP trainings where you meet others that are in similar contexts with you. That's what I find. And when it's just like going to a conference, and when I attend an online training, even like the Catapult, and I'm sure has happened with the trails, once you're a cohort in some of these online trainings, even you're learning some more teaching methodologies about LSP, and you're meeting other people in a situation similar to you. And then you may just connect with someone that's in an exact similar situation, your subject area, they're a first year educator as well. So I think the idea isn't to create a bureaucracy and have a global association, but a way that all the associations communicate and connect with each other. Keyword: efficiently, easily, and without adding bureaucracy. I don't know, let Violetta.
Exactly, and exchanging with another colleague from another part of the globe who's teaching English for business, stage 1, and you can share your syllabus and you can discuss, and where you're struggling with which materials, which books, you can find, like, the idea is to collaborate each other to make your life easier and our lives easier when we are deciding, hey, I have a new group starting with this, and what should I do? And you can research and find cross-cultural information.
Yeah, my personal experience would be, first, if I had not been a member of the Slovene Association of LSP Teachers now for more than 20 years, I must say, I wouldn't today have half of the competencies that I have, because I have learned so many things from my colleagues, and hopefully I'm giving now something back in return. This is the first thing that I would like to share. And the second one actually is, in Slovenia, I am very isolated, being the only maritime English teacher in the whole country, which basically means that I have to be open to the outside world. And we have the International Maritime English Conference, which actually brings together all the maritime English teachers around the world. And these are the only people that I can learn from. Nobody else, to my subject specialists here at the school, to whom I'm really grateful. But otherwise, I think that international collaboration, especially for somebody in a situation like mine, is extremely important.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, really. Thank you for your insights, really. Perhaps some like the learning virtual exchanges could also be some kind of I don't know, objective. So Violetta, you were saying, so what would be our proposal of objectives within this global organization, or what would be our needs? So perhaps a place where to find other students with whom we could learn together,
Maybe.
So in terms of the same case of the virtual exchange platform that Francesca had commented on this morning.
Mm-hmm. Yes, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah, I think through LSP and virtual exchange need to be married, and I think that was kind of Alejandro and Elizabeth's goal by combining the themes this year. Because at least I see in the U.S. There's a large LSP community, and virtual exchange is growing, but I don't see a lot of LSP in our virtual exchange, and that may be similar in other places, I don't know, but definitely those elements need to be added, I would say.
Yes, I agree. Okay, anything else, anybody? Well, if there are no more comments or questions, then I think we could conclude the roundtable. Thank you so much, Mary.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Laura.
Thank you guys so much. We appreciate it. Good luck with the rest of the conference.
Good
Thank
luck.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ciao, gracias.
Thank you, bye.
Bye-bye, Guzman Mencho, from Lleida University.
Ah, cool.
Yeah, okay.
See
Just to
you.
put a face, all right?
Yes, exactly.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's very nice.
Ojalá que estuviera allí. Qué pena. Bueno,
Hace
Yo
calor,
también.
de todas formas, hace
ay, me
calor.
imagino con la mascarilla. Bueno, chao.
Sí. Oh.